Hello guys, and welcome to another one of my Slenderman distortion tutorials. In this tutorial, we're finally going to be learning a little bit more about creating Slenderman tentacles. That's right, this is the long procrastinated Slenderman tentacles tutorial part 2. In this tutorial, we're going to be learning a few tips and tricks on creating realistic tentacle movement and blending them into your scene. So without further ado, let us get started. Right, so here I have After Effects open, of course, because this is unfortunately the only program I know how to make tentacles in. And in After Effects, I actually have one of my projects open for one of my past videos, and it is this one. Let's see if you can recognize this one. It's the behind the currents video, where the tentacles suddenly pop out from Slenderman and he uses them to stand up on himself. And then you may also notice the background's gone, and that's because we used a green screen for this shot. And we also had a few other things too included, but it went missing, which is why you see all these weird things, because the footage is missing, and that's why the background is missing too. So I apologize for that. I don't know what happened to it. But anyways, we'll get to that eventually. Right now we're going to start by reviewing how to actually make the tentacle, and I'll discuss a few tips on creating realistic movement. So first off, we go up to Layer, New Solid, of course, and we create a new solid. Not exactly black, something really dark gray, because like I said in past tutorial, nothing's ever really truly black in real life, and for some reason I'm not seeing anything. So let me start a new composition and see if that solves the issue. Okay, yeah, that composition is not working for some reason. Right, so here we have our solid anyways. So we're going to go ahead and get our mask tool right here, pen tool. And then we're going to create our long triangle shape to create the basic tentacle shape, like that. Then we hold down Alt and click on these 2 points while still holding down Alt. Then we pick our selection tool. We get these points and curve them up a bit, like so. Oh, not that much, something like this. You can also move these to make them skinnier or fatter, but I'll leave it like this. Okay, so we have our basic shape, and now we're going to use our old friend, the puppet pin tool, which is absolutely essential to this effect. We're going to create 4 points. Well, this is what I typically use. You can go ahead and use more points, but I don't feel it's necessary, and it seems like more work because you have more points to work with. So we'll just work with 4 for now. And we have our basic tentacle movement right here. Right. So we're going to pick our solid, which is our tentacle, which I should probably rename it Tentacle. And we're going to press U. And then here we have our basic points, 1, 2, 3, and 4. What we're going to do is we're going to hold down Shift while selecting Puppet Pin 1, and then click on Puppet Pin 4, so we select them all. Right, so here is our tip on learning in creating realistic and relatively easy motion. So now we're going to move to the beginning, just right here. Then we're going to skip ahead a few frames by pressing the page down button. Then going to move everything straight up, or it doesn't have to be straight up, just up. It could be to the side a little bit. Then we move ahead a few frames and move the tentacle down, like so. And so basically we have that, which looks pretty damn stupid. But we're not done yet. Right now we have these points. What we're going to do is we're not going to touch Puppet Pin 1. We're going to select the top 3 points. Then we're going to scoot them over to it sits in between the space on Puppet Pin 1. Then once we scoot those over, we're going to select the top 2 and do basically the same thing. Move it in between the space right here. Then we're going to select our last puppet pin and again do the same thing. Then we select all the keyframes, right click on one of them, pick keyframe assistant, ease. And we have pretty good wavy Slenderman tentacle motion. It seems a bit slow though, so what we do to speed it up is make sure we have all our points selected, select the top right point, hold down Alt, click on it, and drag in. What this does is it compresses the space in between each keyframe in a relative motion, meaning it still maintains its ratio between each point, but it gets smaller, which means it moves faster. And we could just select all these points, hit Control C to copy, and Control V to paste. Scoot them over. And we can pretty much keep doing this. And obviously you would want to randomize these a little bit, because the same motion over and over is going to look pretty unrealistic. Like say maybe we could take this point and scoot it over a little bit, or go to this point and then scoot that over a little bit. If you want to see your tentacle without all this extra stuff, what you do is you hold down Control, Shift, and you press H. Then you click out of the tentacle, and you can pretty much see your tentacle without any extra stuff, so you can make sure it all looks good. Then you would press Control, Shift, H again, in case you want to see everything. Now that we have our motion, there's still something off with it. And that is that there's no motion blur. In real life, when something moves, it gets blurry as it moves faster. This is not doing so. So what we would do is we would go right here where it says motion blur. There's this picture of little circles, and we checkmark that. And as we notice, there's still no motion blur. What's going on? Well, what you have to do is you want to check the one on top right here that says enable motion blur for all layers in a motion blur switch set, which looks pretty much like the same symbol right here. You would check that. As you can see, we already got some motion blur going on. Turn it off, turn it back on, we have motion blur. And that is absolutely essential for creating realistic motion. And now that we have our points, I wanted to add, you don't need the keyframes for Puppet Pin 1. In fact, you should pretty much delete these, because what Puppet Pin 1 is it's the anchor point to your Slenderman. It's where it's the point where it's attached to Slenderman. You want that to stay still, or you want to keyframe it to match Slenderman's motion, so it matches where he's moving, which is why I opened up this project, because I'm going to show you that. Right here, we're going to individualize just this one tentacle right here. We're going to get rid of all these other tentacles, hide them. So we have this one. And we're going to move to the point where it starts. Right here. Okay, so I'm going to hit U, and then here we have these keyframes. As you can see, there's a pretty random order of keyframes on Puppet Pin 1. This is because what I did was I looked at Slendy's motion like that, and then I pretty much hand tracked his motion. Because you can see it's somewhat following his motion as he bends over right here, and it's the same with all the other tentacles. I'm just showing you this one right now. And I used the same motion trick as I was showing you right now on how to create realistic motion. All I did was just leave the first keyframe, the first puppet pin, not keyframed until I tracked the shot. Well, I didn't track it, it was on a tripod. And then I just followed his motion, which is why this particular episode took 4 days to edit. Interesting fact. But yeah, that's essentially what you would do at that point, just to get the tentacle to follow Slenderman. Now here's another trick that I actually learned from someone else in the Slenderverse, and his name is Ryan. So thank you, Ryan. You pretty much helped me out with this one too. Right, so I can't really demonstrate it completely since I don't have the background footage. Actually, I think I can. You're just gonna have to give me a sec to open up my last video. So I'll go ahead and do that. Let me just save this. Alright, so we have the shot right here. And it's really, really, really rendery. So I'm gonna turn off a few things. Right, so we have our cinema right here. Alright, and then we have our tentacles. I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in just so I can demonstrate something. I don't know if you can notice, but what I'm talking about essentially is there's a light wrap around around the tentacles, so it looks as if the sun is pretty much hitting it. Okay, so I'm gonna move into this comp right here, which actually has the tentacles, and you can see more clearly. Here we have these light streaks on the tentacles. And what this essentially does is it makes it look like it's actually there in the scene, because if light strikes something, well, it's gonna have light streaks somewhere. And if we go back to the scene, we can see that relative to where the shadows are, the light is coming from this direction. So I made the light go in this direction. Alright, let me just quit yammering and actually discuss the effect. I'm gonna turn them off for all these tentacles so I can demonstrate better. Right, so here I have our tentacle, and now I'm wondering, oh, I need to put some light. Let me look at the scene again. Oh, the shadows are striking this direction. I need to put the light hitting this direction because that's where the light's coming from. So we go back to our tentacles, if I can find them again. This is why you have to label things. It makes it easier. So then we go to Effects, Perspective, Bevel Alpha. Then here we have this light angle thing. You would point to where the light is coming from. Like, light's coming from this direction, so we point it somewhere in this direction. Then we can increase our light intensity, and we can control our thickness and lower the intensity so it's softer. Now, I typically don't like to do it this way because you don't really have a control on how soft the light is. So what I would do, which I actually didn't do in the video and I actually end up learning later, let me cut this effect out. What I would do is duplicate the same tentacle, apply the effect on it, the bevel alpha. Then I would go to the transfer mode, which if you can't see it, you have to press F4. Then I would pick add. Let me just turn all this back on. And then what you would do with the layer that's add, oh no, this isn't add, this screen. Here we go. Okay, now we have that as add. What you would do is you would drop the opacity a bit, and then you go up to effect, blur and sharpen, fast blur. Then you would do something like 6 or 5 or 4. And if you want to be precise with this, without having to type it in, you hold down control, and then you can move it in fine increments. So something like that. And we turn on repeat edge pixels. And that gives you a bit more control on how soft and how prominent the light is. But that essentially helps sell the effect like it's actually, the tentacle is actually there. Right. So now we go back here and we can see that we have our light wrap around it. And that's the actual technical term for this. This is light wrap. And I pretty much did the same thing with what I did in behind the curtains, where I keyframed the position behind our Sunderman. But I also had to track the shot because it was motion, as you can see, which made it a bit tricky because tracking was pretty annoying in this shot. Right, so I believe that's pretty much everything I could talk about now. I really haven't had anyone ask me any questions, so sorry if I didn't give away too much information. I really couldn't think of any other questions other than what I just discussed right now. So hopefully you found this tutorial helpful. The tutorial that I was requested is a Audacity tutorial. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cover basically all of Audacity and some of the effects and how you can use them in your Slenderman series. Right, so once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.